we want you to know.
The relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom in 2025 continues to be defined by the oft-cited special relationship, a phrase that has endured since Winston Churchill first used it in 1946, and while the words may sometimes feel ceremonial or overused, the reality is that the partnership remains one of the most consequential and multi-layered bilateral alliances in the world. Though its nature has been reshaped by new economic realities, global security challenges, shifting diplomatic priorities, and cultural forces that bind the two nations together even when political winds change. Economically, the bond has grown stronger in the wake of Brexit, with both sides recognizing the need for deeper transatlantic trade integration at a time of global uncertainty. The historic trade deal signed in May 2025 is a testament to this economic pivot. The United States agreed to cut its steep 27.5% tariffs on British cars down to 10% for up to 100,000 vehicles annually, slashed tariffs on UK steel and aluminum to zero, and opened markets for agricultural exports such as beef and ethanol, while the UK reciprocated by lowering non-tariff barriers and granting procurement access for American firms in sectors like aerospace, biotech, and digital services. For Britain, struggling to redefine its post-EU economic identity, the deal was a lifeline that safeguarded jobs in manufacturing hubs and gave exporters fresh access to the world's largest consumer economy. For the U.S., it meant securing a trusted economic partner in an era when competition with China and supply chain diversification are top priorities. Beyond trade, both governments have prioritized joint innovation in science, technology, and space, seeking to position themselves at the forefront of AI, renewable energy, and digital regulation, making the economic relationship as forward-looking as it is traditional. Yet economics alone does not capture the depth of the bond, for defense and security remain at the very heart of the US-UK partnership, and in 2025, the alignment is arguably as strong as at any time since the Cold War. The United Kingdom has committed to raising defense spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2027, with further discussions about reaching 3% in the following decade, reflecting recognition of the heightened global threat environment posed by Russia's continued aggression in Ukraine, China's assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific, and the evolving risks of cyber warfare and terrorism. As one of NATO's most reliable members, the UK not only meets but often exceeds alliance benchmarks, standing shoulder to shoulder with the US in Eastern Europe deployments, naval patrols in contested waters, and counter-terror operations. The two countries also continue to share intelligence at an unparalleled level through the Five Eyes network, which includes Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and which remains the world's most advanced intelligence-sharing alliance. This security partnership is reinforced by decades of nuclear cooperation, joint military exercises, and interoperability of forces, making the two militaries almost seamlessly integrated in planning and execution. Still, military unity does not erase all diplomatic friction, and in 2025, the relationship has faced subtle but meaningful tests on the diplomatic front. On climate policy, for instance, the UK has been more aggressive in pursuing renewable energy and emissions targets, while the US, under shifting leadership, has occasionally sent mixed signals, with some American policymakers emphasizing fossil fuel expansion, even as others champion green transition. On foreign policy, differences in tone are also visible, with London sometimes taking a more cautious line in Middle Eastern and Asian conflicts, whereas Washington often presses for more assertive stances. Yet despite these divergences, the symbolism of high-level visits, such as former President Donald Trump's September 2025 state visit to the UK, during which he met King Charles III and Prime Minister Keir Starmer, underscores that both sides remain invested in projecting unity even when policy nuances diverge. Diplomats and commentators have noted that while the relationship may feel more transactional and pragmatic than in the past, it is still characterized by a level of trust and access unmatched by any other bilateral alliance. Beyond policy, however, it is the cultural and people-to-people ties that provide the glue binding the nations together in ways that statistics and treaties cannot fully capture. The shared language, common legal heritage, and overlapping values of democracy and rule of law provide a foundation of mutual familiarity, while the exchange of culture, whether in the form of British bands like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Adele reshaping American music, or Hollywood films, American streaming platforms, and digital culture dominating UK screens, creates a sense of shared cultural space. Thousands of American students attend British universities each year, while British academics, scientists, and professionals migrate across the Atlantic to work in US institutions, reinforcing a transatlantic intellectual community. Sports, too, play their part, with the NFL hosting regular games in London and British football clubs enjoying massive American fan bases, evidence of how cultural exchange operates at multiple levels. These cultural bonds mean that even when politics diverge, public opinion in both countries tends to view the other as a close friend rather than a distant ally, sustaining goodwill that makes cooperation politically easier. Yet the very strength of this relationship raises the question of how it will adapt to the future. And here, the challenges are real. The first challenge is structural. The international system is no longer bipolar as it was in the Cold War, nor unipolar as it briefly seemed in the post-1991 era, but increasingly multipolar, with China, India, the EU, and other powers asserting themselves. The US must balance its global commitments while grappling with domestic divisions, while the UK must reconcile its desire for global influence with the reality of reduced economic and political weight after Brexit. Some former ambassadors have warned of a seismic shift in the relationship, suggesting that differences in worldview and values could erode the depth of trust that has traditionally underpinned the alliance. Others caution that the UK's diminished role in Europe post-Brexit might reduce its usefulness to Washington as a bridge to the EU, potentially altering the logic of the relationship. Meanwhile, debates over how to handle China, whether to prioritize confrontation, cautious engagement, or selective decoupling, highlight that even close allies must navigate their own domestic politics and economic dependencies. There are also internal pressures. In the UK, budget constraints force hard choices about defense and welfare spending, while in the US, polarization between political parties sometimes leads to abrupt shifts in foreign policy priorities. And yet, despite these challenges, the bond persists, precisely because it is not only institutional, but also historical and cultural. The sight of an American president and a British prime minister standing side by side at a NATO summit or a D-Day commemoration still resonates worldwide, symbolizing a continuity that transcends individual leaders. For both publics, the alliance serves as reassurance that their country remains anchored in a trusted partnership, even when the world feels uncertain. Thus, as of 2025, the US-UK relationship can best be described as resilient, adaptive, and deeply rooted, yet evolving into a form that is less romantic and more pragmatic, less about nostalgia for past glories, and more about jointly navigating the challenges of a fragmented 21st century world. It is no longer enough to invoke Churchill and Roosevelt. What matters now is whether Washington and London can deliver together on climate change, digital governance, economic resilience, and security in an era defined by technological disruption, authoritarian resurgence, and shifting global power balances. The special relationship endures, but it endures because it reinvents itself in response to the pressures of history, and in 2025, it is doing so once again, proving that while the end of money, the rise of multipolarity, and the strains of domestic politics may challenge it, the US and UK remain bound together by shared interests, shared values, and a shared belief that their partnership still matters not only to them, but to the wider world.